Friends, in part 1, we saw that the small family moved into a new house, and strange things started happening to them. Things moving around, a strong stench in the house, and even the appearance of a dark shadow inside the house became commonplace for the small family. But when their family dog flew through the air and hit the wall right in front of their eyes, they became convinced that there were spirits in their house, and they started getting very scared. But before we begin part 2 of the story, those who haven't yet subscribed to the channel should do so quickly. Subscribing and turning on the bell notifications will give us immense motivation to create more such scary stories for you. So, why wait? Hit the subscribe button and enjoy the second part of Small's family haunting. As time went on, the Small's family's tragedies increased. When Jack slept at night, he often felt as if someone was very close to him, breathing near him, but he could never see anyone. Then one night, he woke up to the sound of a young girl's voice. He thought it might be Janet calling him, but when he turned in bed, it wasn't Janet, but someone else. Her face was completely pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Before Jack could react, the girl grabbed him and he fell unconscious. When he regained consciousness, his entire body was covered in scratch marks. When Jack told Janet about this, she told him that this often happens to her at night. A tall, dark shadow approaches her, pulls down her blanket, and then grabs her leg, after which she loses consciousness. When she wakes up, she too has scratches on her body. Both of them were becoming increasingly frightened by each other's conversations. One night, while Jack and Janet were sleeping in their room, Jack had a very strange dream. He was floating in the air, but when Jack opened his eyes a little later, he realized it wasn't a dream. Jack was actually floating in the air about 2 feet above his bed. Suddenly, Jack began to struggle and fell back onto the bed with a thud. Many strange incidents also occurred with Janet. One afternoon, while Jack and Janet were sleeping, they were awakened by a jolt. Someone was dragging Janet from her bed. Someone who was neither visible nor audible was pulling her down with all his might. Seeing this, Jack tried to pull Janet up, but the invisible force was so powerful that it pulled Janet from the bed and dragged her across the room to the other side. Janet could do nothing but scream. After a while, the force left Janet's body on the ground. Now, Jack and Janet were terrified by these events. The Smalls had already spent 13 years in that house. Without further ado, they called in the world's most renowned paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens visited their home for the first time in 1986. Ed and Lorraine studied demonology and had solved several major paranormal investigation cases. Lorraine possessed psychic abilities, allowing her to see, understand, and feel more than normal people. Upon entering the Smurls' home, she realized there was not just one spirit, but many. Warren began her investigation. Ed, Lorraine, and their team installed several tape recorders throughout the house. Upon reaching the Smurls' home, Ed and Lorraine realized this wasn't a ghostly pursuit. As they investigated, they discovered there were 4 spirits in the Smurls' home. One was that of an old woman who wished no harm to anyone. One was that of a slightly troubled and angry young girl, and the other was that of a tall, broad man. But far more dangerous than these 3 spirits was a 4th spirit, an inhuman, demonic entity, a demon, that is, the spirit of an evil spirit. that controlled all the others. Wares began performing numerous blessing rituals and exorcisms. During one exorcism, Ed was walking around the house reciting holy prayers when he saw a shadow in Jack and Janet's room. He entered the room and began reciting holy prayers aloud, when suddenly his breath stopped. He felt as if someone was trying to strangle him, as if the fingers of that invisible force were digging into Ed's throat. But then a member of Ed's team arrived and chanted prayers loudly. The pressure in Ed's throat vanished within a short time, but deep fingerprints remained on her neck. Despite numerous rituals, the Smurls' troubles remained unresolved. The atmosphere at home had become so horrific that the children refused to sleep alone in their rooms. Crosses of Jesus Christ would fall off the walls on their own. Furniture would move about on their own, and the entire house would be thrown into disarray. Sometimes, chairs would rise into the air and bang against each other right in front of the Smurls and Wares. Meanwhile, Ed saw a message on the mirror inside Jack Janet's bedroom. Leave, meaning go away, indicating that someone was unhappy with their presence there and was asking them to leave. No priest was able to help Ed and Lorraine. Then the Smurls family went to the press, hoping someone would hear their story and help them. Concealing their identities, Jack and Janet went on a talk show with Lorraine, where they told their entire story. But perhaps the demon didn't want to be talked about. When they returned home, the demon was ready to take revenge. That night, while sleeping, Jack and Janet felt their bed shaking violently. When they opened their eyes, their bed was floating in the air. A terrifying demon stood before them. This was the first time they had seen that terrifying demon with their own eyes. A huge, tall, black shadow loomed in the darkness, its red eyes glowing. They could hear it growling, as if it was extremely angry. Suddenly, Jack and Janet stopped breathing and began to struggle. Soon, they fell unconscious, and when they woke up, they had numerous injuries all over their bodies. The Warrens still refused to give up, but during an exorcism, Janet became possessed and began floating in the air. Her eyes turned white, and she was writhing in pain. Jack couldn't bear to see Janet in this state. He wanted to stop the exorcism, but the Warrens refused to let him stop it. Janet began screaming in pain. Suddenly, her voice changed, as if someone else was screaming in a different language. Just then, Janet, floating in the air, hit the wall with a force and fell down. Blood started flowing from Janet's head, and Jack stopped the exorcism. The Warrens performed their last exorcism in 1989, and after that, all demonic activity gradually subsided. However, it was never officially confirmed that the demon had left Smurls alone. After 15 years of torture, the Smurls finally had to leave their home. The Smurls haunting is one of those hauntings in history where an entire family was gripped by an invisible horror. This is a case where no one had any answers. Rites also admitted that he had never felt more dangerous and vent demonic energy in his paranormal investigation career. This case of the Smurls family haunting became the only case that Rites could never solve. Friends, if you liked our animated video of the Smurls family haunting, then do not forget to subscribe to our channel